Hi, everyone. I'm Steve. I'm here with Brian Sanchez, who is a personal trainer at Parkway Athletic Club in Carson City, Nevada. How you doing, Brian?
Doing great, Steve. Thanks for at least letting me sit and talk with you today. And hello to everybody out there.
We, you're welcome.
Okay, bonus.
Um, we're going to talk about Retatrutide, which, first of all, you all know that we're not doctors. I'm not telling you to do this, just telling you about our personal experience. But we talk to doctors. We have doctors, and they consult with us on the stuff that we're doing and the experiments that we're doing, and we get their approval and so on. So just take that for what it's worth. You guys need to do your own research on whatever it is, whether it's eating an apple or not. Should you eat an apple? Should you not eat an apple? Well, you need to research it and find out what's best for you and what the risk and the reward is. So, Brian, you've been experimenting with Retatrutide for about 3 weeks now. If you turned sideways, you would probably disappear.
Yeah, maybe if I stood next to a pencil, I could hide behind it right about now. Yeah, I after we took a look at these things, and we've been talking about, we've had lots of conversations about the GLP-1s, things like this, pros, cons, should you, shouldn't you, this, that, and the other thing. But what I think was interesting, Steve, is when we started talking about the information out there that all these people are losing good mass in their body, which I'm talking specifically about their muscularity when they use these products for too long. And then somewhere in our conversations, Retatrutide, we started discussing it, which has that component in it, but it does things a little bit different. You might be able to explain it a little bit differently, but there's three different things going on with this product that's really helping your body.
It's a
And
triple agonist.
triple agonist, correct. It kind of piqued my curiosity a little bit more because I am a larger sized person out there, everybody. I'm not yes, I am a gym rat, but I'm not a bodybuilder. I don't
No,
try
you know what
to.
I would call you, Brian? I would call you a princess.
Thank you. I, I am. I should get a crown. You got to see me in my princess dress. But so I've never tried to have that cut physique. However, um, I feel like I'm the perfect specimen to test some things on because I do have some muscle mass, and I have some good size there, and I got a gut. It was the perfect opportunity based on the discussions to let's see what this really does because some of the stuff we were talking about was with the Retatrutide is that people are having success when they use this product, that they are losing their weight and that they're maintaining their muscle mass. And I have a couple of theories with that. Whether you try a Retatrutide or you go with the more familiar GLP-1s like the Ozempics and these types of products that people are using. But in my very first week, to me, I'm like, well, of course they're not maintaining muscle mass. And would you like to explain like me to explain that? Okay, I will. So what I found in that first week, Steve, was I tried my dose, and I'm taking 2 milligrams at that point
That's for a week.
for the week. And in that first week, I 100% lost my appetite. Not in the sense that I didn't know I have to eat. Now, listen, I'm the guy that I push my body when it comes to the protein levels to where I'm consuming, but even by lunch, 120 sometimes, 150 sometimes grams of protein. And I'm taking all this protein in through my day, and I eat pretty much anything I want. But I'm eating well, and I'm well over a 3,000 calorie eater a day. And in that first week, with my appetite getting impacted the way it is, it wasn't just that I didn't feel like eating. Mentally, I could care less. And I love sugar and sweets and things like that. I had no need or no want or no, and I would call myself a sugar junkie ding there, but I had no want for it. And my appetite was gone. And I smoked, a cigar a day. I wasn't smoking cigars, anything. And I thought,
Bizarre.
yeah, I thought that was extremely interesting. So after the first week, I went in and I jumped in on our scanner. We have a body scanner here at our office that we use. And I had checked my measurements before I started the product. And then I took it the following week, and I'm like, how did I lose that weight? And I didn't do it in the sense of trying to lose a ton of weight. I just really wanted to see what this product does. And when I did that weight loss, I noticed, oh my gosh, how did that happen in a matter of like 6 days? And I saw like a small percentage point of my free fat mass go down as well. And I thought, crud, I'm not eating enough protein. And so when the people get on these products, and this is probably a con to them, you have got to be cognizant that you are not going to want to eat. And what that means is this: you have to make yourself eat if you don't want to lose that muscle mass.
Protein.
Yes. So the following 2 weeks, yes, protein. Following 2 weeks, I said, I'm not going to do that because I don't want to lose 20 pounds in a few months and not have the strength I want. And so I thought, it's the holidays. I'm going to go off for 2 weeks and I'm going to make myself eat. And this is what I found interesting, Steve. I was miserable with food. I'd be forcing myself to eat, literally, because I just didn't want it, to where it was uncomfortable for me. And I was probably still hitting around 3,000 calories a day. Now, you would think everybody, and I was on vacation for a week, so I was out of the gym in one of those weeks. I was down at Palm Springs and we were golfing. So you would think in that week, I should be gaining weight. And I literally made myself eat even more that week. I jumped on today. Over that 3-week period, I had lost just over 7 pounds, which doesn't sound like a lot to people. But if you knew how much food I consume and what it takes, and mind you, I was still eating protein, which is very clean food, protein shakes, protein bars to try to keep my proteins up, I was still able to lose that 7 pounds plus, and I balanced out the free fat loss. So it didn't continue to go down. I took my measurements. Our scanner does it for me. My torso, which makes sense, lost 2 inches, fat on your back, things like that.
3
My
weeks,
neck,
2 inches off anywhere is a lot.
yeah, 2 inches. And my neck went up in size. My arms went up in size. And my legs went up in size, which means I'm going after the workout and my body's leaning out. Because where my fat is, if you look at the camera, my fat's right through here, my back, just under my chest, just my love handles, things like that. So it attacked my fat zones, which your brain doesn't tell the body which fat zone to attack. I mean, you can't target like your love handles and things like that. But it truly worked. And I'm absolutely floored. And off camera, I was telling Steve, everybody, blown away. I can't figure out how this works because I ate so much food over that last 2-week period to try to make sure I did not lose muscle mass that I was convinced coming in to weigh in this week. I did it twice because I didn't believe it. Steve can probably laugh because he saw me in there like a day before. I'm like, there's no way these numbers can be right. So I did it again today. And they're dead on right. So I was able to consume all this food. And the reason I'm telling everybody this is if you're even considering whether it's Retatrutide, semaglutide, the one with the T, tirzepatide. Listen, everybody, we've said this 1,000 times, Steve and I, when we talk about these products. Yes, they work in weight loss. When you come off of these things, you have got to have a plan. If you don't change your behavioral eating system, you are going to gain all your weight back. Now, think about this. I was able to lose weight staying on my old eating system the 2nd and 3rd week. So it's effective. I also know that if I keep my silly eating system like I did the 2nd and 3rd week, the 1st week I was very strict. The 2nd and 3rd week, if I keep with that, and when I come off of this, I'll gain everything back because I won't have changed my behavior or the pattern of eating that I was using. So now that I kind of know how this stuff works in my body, when we talk about this in the future, in a couple more of the videos, as we go over the next, I picked up enough peptide to cover, I think, 10 or 12 weeks. I'll have to look. So we'll be doing several more of these videos, I assume. And I'm going to eat cleaner, and we're going to see just what happens in the fat side to see if it's effective with my body. But I have an expectation that I'll continue to at least lose at least a pound a week. And I'm quite confident if I don't keep my calories up like I did in that first week, it's going to be 3+ pounds a week. And so you have to really be careful with that. And I think where people get the misunderstandings, they think, well, that's good. Well, it's good if you change your behaviors. But if you keep eating stuff that you shouldn't be eating because it's not good for your body, as soon as you come off of that, you are going to stack that weight and it's going to come back hard. With Retatrutide, 100%, I am convinced it works after 3 weeks. I believe I was able to manage with the higher proteins my muscle mass and maintain it at a better level. Because you hear a lot of people talking about like Ozempic butt or things of this nature, where when they're using
Ozempic
products,
face.
yeah, Ozempic, when things start to sag because they've lost too much muscle, you have to combat that. There is no doubt in my mind that the reason that's happening is because they just aren't eating. And correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, if you think it's something else. I'm sure there's a medical reason behind it, but I'm going to put it on the simple side. People take this stuff because they think it's the golden egg. And they think, oh, I'm going to lose all this weight. You're never going to keep it off if you don't change your practice. And Steve and I kid around, but he knows just as well as I do. I'm a perfect candidate to change eating systems. So I'm going to give this a clean run for the next couple of weeks, and I hope we can bring you guys some really excellent information. But I can tell you right now, with what Steve's doing with the product, you can't see it because he's wearing his shirt right now. The dude is flat out shredded. It has leaned him out, and he could actually get on stage right now. And I'm not saying this to
That's an exaggeration.
no, it's not an
I could get
exaggeration.
on stage and everyone would laugh.
Or let's put it this way: you could be a dancer on stage, maybe. But
Okay.
seriously, Steve's been able to shred and cut his body to the point where I do think he can compete. Steve, take it.
All right. So, first of all, I'm consistently checking my body fat, my body composition,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm coming in testing it 3 different ways between 10.5% body fat and 12.5% body fat. That's far from getting on stage unless you want to get out there and look like a goof. But I do have a nice tan, which is another peptide we can talk about later. So, there's a peptide for everything. But what I wanted to mention is first, people hear all these, even doctors and scientists and, you know, talking about how smart they are about, you don't microdose it, you do microdose it. And look, Brian and I are just gym rats. We're not scientists, my degrees are in business. So if I'm going to brag about having any intelligence there, it might be there, but it's still, I'm not a smart guy. And so I want to talk about this whole, should you microdose or not? Well, first of all, what's a microdose? An amount that your body's not even going to notice. Of course, that's not going to do anything. But let's say you're taking, or you're experimenting, or your rat or your mouse or your kangaroo is experimenting with 3 milligrams a week. I learned this in first grade. And some of my classmates in first grade would use their fingers to count things. So if you're taking 3 milligrams a week, and this is where people will throw rocks at me for saying this, but just, if you guys ever listen to me, which I don't know, I'm not saying you should. I always say, use your brain, use your own brain, think for yourself. So 3 milligrams, 1 milligram plus 1 milligram plus 1 milligram. If you take that Monday, Wednesday, Friday, that equals 3 milligrams. So if you take 3 milligrams on Monday and you take 3 milligrams, 1 on Monday, 1 on Wednesday, 1 on Friday, guess what, everybody? 1 plus 1 plus 1 is 3. It's the same. Now, why do I say it's going to affect you the same? Because the half-life is 7 days for Retatrutide. That means if you take 1, 1, and 1, or you take 3, By the time you hit week 4, 5, 6, you're going to have about 6 milligrams in your system, period. The only difference is you're not going to get a spike by doing it once a week. So if you're on TRT, I like to break up the dosage so that I don't get a spike. The testosterone cypionate has a half-life of about 4 days. So you definitely want to break that up. Retatrutide is 7 days, but the half-life is the same no matter when you take the dosages. So your week total is your week total. And that's not rocket scientist. That's not rocket science. I don't need to be a scientist or a doctor or a chemist or a mathematician to know simple math. Like I said, when I was in first grade, some of the kids use their fingers and they could figure it out. So personally, I prefer the 1-1-1. Why? Because you don't get a spike. Now, you're not going to notice anything, like Brian, you kind of said, after 2 or 3 weeks because it's in your system. So that's the first thing I wanted to address. The second thing is, this is not really about weight loss. That's the benefit.
Right.
And this is from all the things I've learned. This is my opinion. Eli Lilly has this in stage 3. I think they just finished stage 3 trials, and they're taking high dosages. You can go look up that research, but Eli Lilly is researching this peptide and will be bringing it to the market, I'm assuming. They're doing big doses and they're doing them once a week. So that's where it is in trials. And they're going to be marketing it for weight loss, but what it really does is it fixes your body. Because Brian and I are always checking our blood work.
Correct.
I'm doing blood work once a month now because I'm testing out, experimenting, researching with a number of peptides. So I want to know exactly what it's doing to my body. I want to know exactly what my blood work is. And my blood work is improving. My blood work was already good because I eat very healthy. My diet's very strict. And it's true. The same for me. At first, it's like, you got to focus on the protein. And if you don't, what Brian is saying, the reason you're going to gain the weight back is because if you lose lean tissue, you're slowing your metabolism down. You're setting yourself up for failure because now the same amount of calories, you're going to gain weight on the same amount of calories because your metabolism is slower. Why is it slower? Because you've lost lean tissue. So you've got to lift weights. You got to do this anyway. This is not magic. You got to lift weights and you got to get your protein up, at least a pound of protein, a gram of protein per pound of desired body weight. If you weigh 400, you don't need to eat 400 grams of protein. But if you want to weigh 200, then you need to eat 200 grams of protein. So that's just something that I've noticed. Now, I've also noticed that this is peculiar. And it gives your it almost like gives your mind a reset. I've talked to people that, they don't want to gamble anymore. Brian doesn't want to smoke cigars anymore. Their depression goes away. Now, I don't want to make it sound like it's some magic injection. You need to talk to your doctor. And, I think most of the research is done. They're going through the technicalities on this. But that's something that's peculiar to me. But that reset, it stabilizes your glucose. It gets rid of visceral fat. So it's making you healthier. When you're healthier, guess what's going to happen? Fat's going to come off your body. When you're healthier, fat is going to come off your body. And I think that's why it works. Now, of course, don't just listen to my opinion. Listen mostly to your doctor's opinion or your medical practitioner's opinion and what that practitioner is advising. All the doctors have different opinions, and that's pretty interesting, Brian.
I find that very interesting that all these medical people have very different opinions because, some of this stuff too, I don't know if there's really any long-term testing on it. So we might find out, if we grow another eyeball in the back of our head, that something's different because of what we've done and tried. I like what he's mentioned to everybody about the microdosing. My first 2 weeks, I didn't. This week, my first 3 doses. So I just finished 3 weeks. I did not microdose. This is the first week that I'm going to microdose.
And, I wouldn't even call it microdose. I would call it
Yeah.
splitting it up. You're just splitting your weekly dose up into 2 injections or
And
3.
I'm going to add to it, I'm going to go because some of the stuff I was reading talks about a very progressive, small progression in amounts. So I'm going to go from 2 milligrams to 3 for the week. And I'm going to split that. I'm going to do a Monday, Friday stomach injection with an insulin needle. And so I'll be taking half on Monday, half on Friday for the purpose of what I'm going to try and see how that works. Back to what it does to you. Look, I used to have bags of candy laying around the house just because I always have a sweet tooth. I haven't bought a bag of candy since I started using this stuff. I'm not kidding when I say this. I don't know why that craving went away, but it's flat out gone. So something in this is causing us, or at least causing me to feel that way, to not even want it. It doesn't even sound like it's going to be enjoyable to me. Now to eat the amount of food that I was doing with this in my system, you got to find a happy medium, everybody. You got to choose your poisons, if you will. If you're going to try this stuff, really focus on getting that protein in first because you are not going to have an appetite. If you take 2 milligrams a week, especially if you're a smaller frame and you don't have a lot of weight to lose and you're just testing it to see what happens, really, 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 I can't emphasize enough kind of what Steve was saying, focus on your protein loads. Make sure you get your adequate numbers in because I think you're going to be disappointed if you don't. And I would probably say my protein loads, I am right now, I'm going to have to say at a high protein diet in the sense of I was still always on a higher protein diet, but now I'm an ultimate high protein diet right now, which isn't bad. I really believe I could go for quite some time without a carbohydrate and I'd be just fine. I wouldn't shrivel up and die. So that might have a little bit to do with too, is if you do take this on. So let's see if this happens, everybody. If I take this on with that higher protein approach, because I have to get that in me, if that also kind of kickstarts fat burning and get me into that 1 to 2 pound a week zone, maybe we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much that we can talk about, and we'll talk more about it next week. And just so you know, again, we don't take any of this as advice or us telling you what to do because that's not what it is. You guys got to think for yourself, talk to your own medical practitioners, and go from there. I will say that on the doses with the trials, Eli Lilly is using 12 to 16, I think as high as 16 milligrams
Holy
a
smokes.
week, a week. And people have lost 30% in a year, 30% of their body weight. That's crazy. But
And I believe it because of the smaller doses that we're using. I 100% believe that as a finding.
yeah, crazy. Anyway, that's where we are now. I've been about 6 weeks now, 5 weeks maybe. And I've lost 7 pounds and I don't have a lot of weight to lose, but I haven't lost any lean tissue. If anything, I put lean tissue on. Now I'm using other peptides too, which we can go over next time. I'm using other peptides that stack with this that kind of enhance it and also enhance your muscle building. So, you guys have questions, put them in the comment section, like and subscribe, click that little bell so you know when the next one comes out when we're talking about this. Brian, any last thoughts?
One more thing. Everybody, when Steve talks about hitting the gym and I talk about hitting the gym, even with these products, we go in with a crush it attitude in our workouts. We don't do things. We're not trying to lean our body out. We're trying to hold on to our muscle. So don't lighten up on your workouts when you're doing this stuff. You're not on a diet. Crush it, Steve.
Yeah, and not only are you not on a diet, there's no magic pill. You hear
No,
about all these peptides, and the people that are getting results with them are the ones that are putting in the hard work. The hard work and discipline with what you put in your pie hole.
right.
So that matters. Just don't think that, your doctor is going to give you some magic pill and you're going to look like Barbie or Ken or Barbie, because that's probably not going to happen. So thanks everybody for listening to two meathead gym rats, 50-year gym rat for me, probably at least 40 for you.
Pretty darn close.
All right, everybody. So stay tuned for our next little discussion about how this is going. Thanks for being here, Brian.
Take care, everybody. See you around, Steve.